They say invisibility is a survival skill. For a Jamaican woman working Seoul's underground nightlife, it wasn't just a skill. It was the only rule that mattered. Smile politely. Serve drinks. Speak only English. Never ask questions. I'd followed that rule perfectly for 6 months, until the night my phone rang and I forgot who I was supposed to be. Simone? Where the hell? Manager Kim spotted me before I'd even made it through the kitchen. His usually composed face twisted with panic I'd never seen before. He grabbed my arm, pulling me aside as kitchen staff maneuvered around us with practiced efficiency. VIP room tonight. High-profile clients, extremely high-profile. My stomach dropped. But that's Minji's section. Minji's gone. His fingers dug into my shoulder. Listen carefully. These people, they're not regular VIPs. You serve drinks, you smile, you speak English only, and you do not make eye contact unless directly addressed. Understand? I nodded, fingers fumbling with my apron strings. I needed this job. 6 months ago, I'd fled Kingston with nothing but a suitcase, leaving behind a life I'd spent years building, a life that had become a beautiful cage I'd barely escaped. Seoul was supposed to be my blank slate, my chance to disappear into a city so massive that no one would think to look for me here. But blank slates required money, and my tiny efficiency in Itaewon devoured most of my paycheck. Who are they? I asked, adjusting the collar of my uniform. Manager Kim's eyes darted toward the hallway leading to the private rooms. Business associates of the owner. Just stay professional, efficient, invisible. Invisible. That word had become my mantra, my meditation, my entire existence strategy. In Jamaica, I'd been too visible, too educated, too fluent in too many languages, too valuable to the wrong people. Here in Seoul, I was just another foreign worker, one of thousands, faceless, in the neon-lit maze of the city's nightlife economy. I took a breath and pushed through the double doors into the main lounge. Paradise Lounge wasn't like the clubs on the main strips. It didn't advertise. It didn't have a sign out front. You had to know someone who knew someone to even find the entrance. An unmarked door down a side alley between a convenience store and a closed-down pharmacy. Inside, everything whispered old money and dangerous power. Low neon strips cast blue and purple shadows across leather booths. Crystal decanters lined mirrored shelves behind a bar that stretched the length of the room. The air itself felt expensive, heavy with imported liquor and secrets that cost more than most people earned in a year. I moved through the main floor with practiced ease, spine straight, chin level, the way I'd trained myself. Past the regular tables where men in tailored suits conducted business in low voices, past the bar where our head bartender mixed drinks with surgical precision, down a corridor that grew quieter with each step. The private VIP room sat at the end of the hall, behind a door of dark wood and frosted glass. I paused, heart hammering against my ribs, and knocked once. No response. I knocked again, softer this time, and pushed the door open. The room was darker than the main lounge, lit only by recessed fixtures that cast golden shadows across walls papered in deep burgundy. A large circular table dominated the center, surrounded by 6 men in suits that probably cost more than my entire year's rent. Their conversation stopped the moment I entered, 6 pairs of eyes turning toward the door. But only one gaze locked onto mine and refused to let go. He sat at what my brain registered as the head of the table, though the table was round. Maybe it was the way the others had positioned themselves, angled slightly toward him. Maybe it was the way no one spoke until he did. Or maybe it was just him, the way he occupied space, the way air seemed to bend around his presence. Dark hair cut close on the sides, longer on top, sharp jawline, high cheekbones, skin that caught the amber light, a black suit that fit like it had been born on his frame. But it was his eyes that stopped my breath, dark, calculating, and utterly cold. He looked young, maybe mid-30s, but he carried the kind of stillness that only came from absolute power. I dropped my gaze immediately, blood rushing to my face. "Good evening, gentlemen. I'm Simone, and I'll be serving you tonight. May I start with drinks?" I moved around the table with mechanical efficiency, taking orders in English, Korean, Japanese, whatever language they offered. Whiskey, gin, vodka. I wrote everything down with hands that wanted to tremble but didn't dare. When I reached him last, he didn't answer my question. "You're new," he said instead. His voice was low, measured, with an accent I couldn't quite place. Korean standard, but with rounded edges that suggested time spent elsewhere. Not a question, a statement. Yes, sir. 6 months. My pen hovered over my notepad. Something flickered in his expression, too quick to read. Whiskey. Neat. Japanese if you have it. I nodded and turned toward the door when it opened. A man in a dark suit entered, bowing slightly to the table before approaching the seated figure. He leaned down, whispering something I couldn't hear from my position. The man's expression didn't change, but his shoulders shifted, tension rippling across them like a stone dropped into still water. I slipped out before anyone could notice I was still there. The hallway air felt easier to breathe. I hurried to the bar, placing the order with shaking hands. When I returned minutes later with a tray of crystal glasses, the atmosphere in the room had transformed. Voices were lower now, sharper. Papers had appeared on the table. The conversation had shifted from social to business, and the temperature had dropped 10 degrees. I distributed drinks in silence, port trying to be nothing more than moving furniture. As I placed the whiskey in front of the lid man, my phone vibrated in my apron pocket. I never took personal calls during work. Never. But the phone had been on for one reason only: the hospital in Kingston, where my mother was recovering from surgery. A surgery I'd paid for with money I'd earned here, money I'd wired home in carefully tracked installments. After placing the last drink, I stepped back toward the wall and discreetly checked the screen. St. Andrew's Hospital, urgent. My heart lurched into my throat. The room seemed to tilt. I glanced at the table. They were deep in discussion, heads bent over documents, voices barely above whispers. I took 2 steps back and answered. "Hello?" I whispered. The voice on the other end spoke quickly, words tumbling over each other in accented English. I switched without thinking, the way I always did when my brain was moving faster than my mouth. "Wait, slow down. What happened? Is she stable now?" The Korean flowed out smooth, natural, native level. "Did the doctor say when?" I froze. The room had gone completely silent. When I looked up, all 6 men were staring at me, but the lead man's gaze had changed. Sharper now, focused like a blade catching light. His head tilted slightly, the way a predator's does when it catches an unexpected scent. I ended the call with trembling fingers. I apologize for the interruption," I stammered in English, shoving the phone back into my pocket. "Would you gentlemen like to order your meals now?" No one answered immediately. The silence stretched, pulling tight like a wire about to snap. Finally, the lead man spoke. "Yes, bring the tasting menu, for everyone." I nodded and fled. The next 2 hours were the longest of my life. I moved in and out of that room like a ghost, bringing courses, refilling glasses, clearing plates. Each time I entered, I felt his eyes tracking my movements, not with the crude attention some men gave servers, but with something colder, more clinical. Like I was a puzzle he was solving piece by piece. Once, when I leaned between 2 men to place a dish, I caught the scent of his cologne, something woody and dark that smelled like power distilled into liquid form. The conversation had shifted between languages: Korean, Japanese, Mandarin, English, and occasionally, when they thought no one was listening, Italian. I understood every word, I always did. But I kept my face carefully blank, my expression neutral, my movements efficient, invisible, professional, safe. By the time I brought out dessert and coffee, my nerves were shredded. The men had relaxed slightly, business concluded, the conversation drifting towards sports, politics, casual observations. I presented the check in a leather folder, and the lead man took it without looking, sliding a black credit card across the table. When I returned with the receipt, he signed it with a flourish I couldn't read. Then he looked up at me, really looked, and spoke in perfect, flawless Korean. "Thank you for your service tonight, Simone-si." My name in his mouth, wrapped in Korean honorifics, sent ice down my spine. I nodded, not trusting my voice, and stepped back as they gathered their belongings. They filed out one by one, the lead man last. At the door, he paused and glanced back. "Jalga," he said quietly. "Go well." Then he was gone. I exhaled and nearly collapsed against the table. When I looked at the receipt, my hand started shaking again. The tip was more than I made in 2 weeks. An hour later, I was cleaning up, exhausted to my bones, when Manager Kim appeared beside me. "Simone, Mr. Yoon would like to speak with you before you leave." My blood went cold. "Mr. Yoon?" "The owner. He was at your table tonight." The room spun. The man with the cold eyes, the man who had watched me all night, the man who had spoken to me in Korean. That was Yoon Jae-hyun, the owner. The ghost everyone whispered about. The man whose name was spoken with fear. Manager Kim led me to a small office at the back of the building. He knocked once, gestured for me to enter, and left me standing there alone. I stepped inside. The office was small but immaculate. Dark wood paneling, a desk that commanded the room, low lighting that cast shadows across everything. Jae-hyun sat behind the desk, jacket removed, white shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms marked with tattoos I couldn't quite make out. He wasn't alone. A large man stood by the door, hands clasped, stance wide. Security. Sit, please, Jae-hyun said, gesturing to the chair across from him. I sat, spine rigid, hands folded in my lap to hide their trembling. He studied me in silence for a long moment. Then, "Where did you learn Korean?" My throat went dry. I studied it, before I came here. You didn't study it. His voice was calm, factual. You lived it. Your accent isn't learned, Simone. It's native level, the kind that only comes from years of immersion. Childhood, probably. I couldn't breathe. The call you received tonight, he continued, leaning back in his chair. Bad news from home? My eyes widened. My mother, she had surgery. There were complications. She's stable now, but... I stopped, furious with myself for explaining anything. He nodded slowly. You understand everything that was said at that table tonight. It wasn't a question. I didn't answer. He opened a drawer and removed a slim black folder, sliding it across the desk toward me. Open it. With shaking hands I did. Inside was a single sheet of paper, an offer letter, a job, translator and cultural liaison. 3 months. Salary that made my head spin. Housing included. All expenses paid. I looked up at him, confusion and suspicion warring in my chest. I don't understand. You're useful to me, Simone. People like you, people who understand more than they should, are very valuable, especially when they're good at being invisible. The corner of his mouth curved upward. Until they're not. What would I be doing? Translating, attending meetings, helping me navigate situations that require cultural sensitivity. My instincts screamed danger. Why me? You could hire professional translators. I prefer authenticity. I prefer people I've personally vetted, and I prefer people who have something to lose. His gaze was steady, unblinking. You need money. I'm offering it. It's a simple transaction. I stared at the paper, at the number that could change everything, that could pay for my mother's care, my rent, my survival. You don't have to decide now, he said, leaning forward, but I'll need an answer by tomorrow morning. I stood on legs that felt like water, the folder clutched in my hand. As I turned to leave, he added quietly, Your mother doesn't have much time to recover without proper care. Neither do you. The implied threat hung in the air. I walked out of that office, past the security guard, through the empty lounge, and into the cold Seoul night. Halfway home in a taxi, I realized Yoon Jae-hyun had never asked if I had a passport. He hadn't asked about my visa status. He hadn't asked anything about my life. He already knew. And somehow, despite every alarm bell screaming in my head, I knew I would accept his offer. Not because I wanted to, because refusing wasn't really an option. What I didn't know then, couldn't have known, was that I would never be invisible again. Sleep never came that night. I lay in my narrow bed, staring at the ceiling of my tiny apartment, my mind cycling between my mother's voice on the phone, weak but stable, and Jae-hyun's cold, knowing eyes. By dawn, my decision was made. Not because I trusted him. Not because I believed the job was what he claimed. But because invisibility, I was starting to realize, had always been a cage of its own. And maybe it was time to step into the light. Whatever that cost me. I just didn't know yet that the light would burn everything I thought I knew about survival. Or that the man who'd ordered his people not to let me leave would become the only person who'd ever truly see me. Yoon Jae-hyun didn't believe in coincidences. He sat in his office long after Simone left, the scent of her fear still lingering in the air, something floral mixed with rain and desperation. His fingers drummed against the mahogany desk, a habit he'd never been able to break when his mind was working through a problem. The Jamaican waitress who spoke Korean like she'd been born in Busan. He reached for his phone, pressed a single button. It rang once before a voice answered. Hung Nim. The waitress. Simone Brown. I want everything. where she came from, how she got here, why she's working in my lounge, and I want to know who called her tonight." Jaehyun's voice was calm, measured. "Start with immigration records, then go deeper." "How deep?" "As deep as it takes." "And Minwoo?" He paused, staring at the closed door through which she'd disappeared. "I want to know if her Korean is learned or lived. Find me a linguist." "Yes, Hyungnim." The line went dead. Jaehyun leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. In his world, information was currency, and secrets were liabilities waiting to explode. He'd built his empire on knowing things other people didn't, on being 3 steps ahead of competitors, law enforcement, and supposed allies who were really just enemies waiting for the right moment. He'd learned that lesson the hard way. 8 years ago, he'd trusted a translator, a young man who'd worked for his organization for 3 years, who'd sat in rooms where strategy was discussed, where alliances were brokered, where weaknesses were exposed. The translator had seemed perfect, professional, efficient, invisible. Until the day Jaehyun discovered the young man had been feeding information to the Hanshin faction for 2 years. The betrayal had cost him 7 men, 2 safe houses, and nearly his life. Jaehyun had handled it personally, quietly, permanently. Since then, he'd vetted everyone who came within 10 feet of his private business with paranoia that bordered on obsession. Translators were rotated, guards were replaced, even his driver changed every 6 months. So when a waitress, a woman he'd never noticed in 6 months of her employment, suddenly revealed fluent native-level Korean in the middle of a meeting where territorial negotiations were being discussed, every alarm in his head had started screaming. The phone on his desk buzzed. He answered without greeting. "She's trying to leave." It was Kang, his head of security at the lounge. "Block her, politely. Tell Manager Kim to keep her occupied." "Already done. She's in the break room." "Good. I'm coming down." Simone sat on a plastic chair in the lounge's cramped break room, her coat on, bag in her lap, while Manager Kim hovered by the door like an anxious bird. "I don't understand," she said for the 3rd time, keeping her voice level even though her heart was hammering. "My shift is over. I need to go home. Mr. Yoon would like you to wait. He has some questions about scheduling." Manager Kim's smile was painful to watch. Scheduling. Simone didn't believe him. She could see it in the way he wouldn't meet her eyes, the way his hands kept wringing together. "I have the same schedule every week. What questions could he possibly—" The door opened. Jaehyun stepped inside, and Manager Kim vanished like smoke. The room suddenly felt half its size. Jaehyun had put his jacket back on, but he'd loosened his tie, and there was something about his presence, the way he occupied space, that made Simone's instincts scream danger. "Walk with me," he said. "Not a question. I'd rather not." "I know." His expression didn't change. "Walk with me anyway." He turned and left, clearly expecting her to follow. Simone sat frozen for 3 heartbeats, weighing her options. She could refuse. She could call someone. Though who would she call? She could run. Though where would she run to? In the end, she stood because she understood the math of power. And right now, Jaehyun held all of it. He led her through the empty lounge, past the bar where a single staff member was counting inventory, past the leather booths now vacant and dark, to a room she'd never entered before. His private office. Larger than the small administrative one where they'd first spoken. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the neon-stained streets of Gangnam. Bookshelves lining one wall. Art that looked expensive and old. 2 men in dark suits stood by the door. Security. Jaehyun gestured to a leather chair. "Sit." This time she obeyed. He moved to the windows, hands in his pockets, silhouette sharp against the city lights. For a long moment, he said nothing. Just stood there looking out at Seoul like a king surveying his kingdom. "Where did you learn Korean?" His voice was quiet, conversational. "I told you, I studied." "Don't lie to me, Simone." He turned, and his eyes were colder than the rain outside. "I've spent the last hour listening to a recording of your phone conversation. You didn't speak Korean. You spoke it. There's a difference." Her blood went ice cold. "You recorded me?" "I record everything in my lounge. It's a security measure." He walked slowly toward the desk, each step deliberate. "Your accent is Gyeonggi Province, with slight influence from Seoul Metropolitan. Your intonation patterns suggest early acquisition, childhood, most likely. You used formal grammar automatically, without thinking, which means it's internalized, not learned from a textbook. Simone's throat had gone dry. You had a linguist analyze me. I have resources. He sat on the edge of his desk, close enough now that she could smell his cologne again, that dark, woody scent. So I'll ask you again, and this time I want the truth. Where did you learn Korean? She met his gaze, refusing to look away even though everything in her wanted to run. Why does it matter? Because 6 months ago you filled out an employment application claiming only English and basic Korean. Because your visa lists you as a temporary worker with no prior residence in Korea. Because according to immigration you entered this country for the first time 8 months ago. He tilted his head slightly. But that's not true, is it? Simone's hands clenched in her lap. I don't know what you're talking about. Then let me tell you what I think. Jaehyun's voice dropped lower, intimate and dangerous. I think you've been here before. I think you understand far more than you should, and I think you heard everything that was discussed at my table tonight. I didn't. Territorial boundaries, port access, revenue splits from the Busan operations. His eyes never left her face. You understood all of it, which makes you either a spy or a liability. So which is it? Neither. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. I'm a waitress who needs this job and wants to go home. Waitresses don't speak Korean like that. Waitresses don't have eyes that calculate exit routes every time they enter a room. Waitresses don't. He stopped, studying her. You're afraid of me. But you were afraid before you ever walked into my lounge. Who are you running from? The question hit like a fist to her chest. For a moment, Simone couldn't breathe. Because he was right. She'd been running for years, long before she'd fled Kingston, long before she'd bought a plane ticket to Seoul. She'd been running since she was 17 years old. I'm not discussing my personal life with you, she said quietly. You are if you want to keep working here. Then I quit. Jaehyun's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or respect. You quit? Yes. And where will you go? That's none of your business. It is when you've been inside my operation. It is when you understand conversations that could get people killed. He leaned forward slightly. You think I'm going to just let you walk out of here? You think I can afford that risk? I didn't ask for any of this. Simone stood, her legs shaking but holding. I came here to serve drinks and disappear. I never wanted your attention, your suspicion, or your interrogation. I'm sorry I answered my phone. I'm sorry I spoke Korean. But I am not a spy, I am not a threat, and I am leaving. She turned toward the door. Sit down, Simone. His voice hadn't raised. It didn't need to. The command in it was absolute. She stopped, hand on the doorknob, and something inside her cracked. I can't keep doing this, she whispered. I can't keep being trapped. The silence that followed felt like the space between lightning and thunder. Trapped, Jaehyun repeated slowly. By who? She didn't answer. Couldn't. After a long moment, she heard him move, heard the soft rustle of fabric as he stood, the quiet footsteps as he approached. He stopped just behind her, close enough that she could feel his presence like heat. Sit down, he said again, gentler this time. Please. And because she was tired, so tired of running, of hiding, of being afraid, she did. Jaehyun returned to his desk, pulled out a tablet, and spent several minutes typing. Then he turned it toward her. On the screen was a file. Her employment application, her visa, her passport photo. This is what I have on you officially, he said. Now I'm going to find out what you don't want me to know. And when I do, you and I are going to have another conversation. Is that a threat? It's a fact. He closed the tablet. You can go home, but don't try to leave the country. Don't try to disappear. Because if you do, I will find you. And the next time we talk, it won't be in an office. Simone stood, legs weak, and walked to the door. The guard stepped aside to let her pass. She was halfway through the doorway when Jaehyun spoke one last time. I know what it's like to be used, Simone. To be valued only for what you can give other people. His voice was quiet, almost sad. If you're running from something, I might be able to help, but only if you tell me the truth. She didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge the words. Just walked out into the cold Seoul night and didn't stop until she reached her apartment. Inside, she collapsed on her bed, still wearing her coat, and stared at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Don't run. She deleted it, but sleep still didn't come. In his office, Jaehyun watched the security feed showing Simone leaving the building. Then he made another call. I want everything by morning. Birth records, adoption papers if they exist, financial transactions, criminal history, associates, and find out why her entry records don't match her language acquisition. He paused, watching Simone's figure disappear into the rain. And put surveillance on her apartment. I want to know if anyone else comes looking. Because if someone had taught Simone Brown to speak Korean like a native, they'd done it for a reason. And Yoon Jae-hyun was going to find out what that reason was, before it got them both killed. The file arrived at 6 a.m. Jae-hyun had been awake for 2 hours, coffee growing cold on his desk, when Min-woo entered his office without knocking and dropped a manila envelope in front of him. You're not going to like it, Min-woo said. Jae-hyun opened the file. Inside were printouts, photographs, and documents marked with official seals from various government agencies. He spread them across his desk, arranging them chronologically. What he saw made no sense. Entry record number 1. Simone Brown, age 14, entered South Korea on a dependent visa, May 2015. Adopted daughter of Dr. Peter Brown, deceased, and Dr. Patricia Chen Brown, deceased. Entry record number 2. Simone Brown, age 27, entered South Korea on a work visa, April 2024. No prior residence listed. The dates were 9 years apart. Same name, same birth date. But according to the official database, the first Simone Brown had never left Korea, and yet also didn't exist in any current records. It gets worse, Min-woo said, pointing to another document. The adoption was processed through a private agency that closed in 2017. The Browns were both academics. He taught political science at Yonsei. She was a linguistic anthropologist. They died in a car accident in 2019. And the girl? Disappeared. Officially listed as returned to country of origin, but there's no exit record, no travel documentation, nothing. Min-woo crossed his arms. I called in a favor at immigration. Off the record, they said her file was flagged as classified. Classified by who? National Intelligence Service. Jae-hyun's jaw tightened. NIS didn't classify random foreign dependents. They classified assets, intelligence operatives, people who knew things that could destabilize governments. He picked up a photograph from the file, a school picture from 2016. A young girl with serious eyes and braided hair, wearing a uniform from an international school in Gangnam. Same face as the woman who'd served his table last night. Same intensity in her gaze. What was she doing here for 5 years? Jae-hyun asked. Learning. Min-woo pulled out another document. She attended Seoul International Academy until 2019. Honor roll. Fluent in Korean, English, Japanese, and Mandarin. Member of the debate team. Model UN. A linguistic prodigy adopted by academics with intelligence connections. Jae-hyun felt the puzzle pieces starting to fit together in ways he didn't like. She wasn't adopted. She was recruited. That's what I thought too, so I dug deeper. Min-woo's expression darkened. Found something in the database of the private security firm that handles protective details for embassy staff. Simone Brown's name appeared on a watch list in 2018. Reason listed, potential asset cultivation. The air in the room went cold. Asset cultivation. The term used when intelligence agencies groomed civilians, usually young, educated, linguistically gifted civilians, to become information sources. Not through coercion, through relationships. They were training her to be a honey trap, Jae-hyun said quietly. Looks that way. Plant her in social circles, leverage her languages and her looks, extract information from targets who thought they were just dating a smart college girl. Min-woo paused. But in 2019, something happened. The Browns died, Simone vanished, and her file was sealed. She ran. Jae-hyun stood, moving to the windows. Dawn was breaking over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. She realized what they wanted her to become, and she ran. If that's true, then her reappearance is a problem. Because if NIS was involved, they don't let assets just walk away. Especially not ones who disappeared without authorization. Jae-hyun's mind raced. The phone call last night, the hospital in Kingston. What if it hadn't been about her mother at all? What if someone had been warning her? Pull the audio from her phone call, he ordered. I want a transcript, and find out who called her. Min-woo nodded and left. Alone, Jae-hyun stared at the photograph of 17-year-old Simone, so serious, so trapped. He understood that look. He'd worn it himself once. Simone woke to pounding on her door. She rolled out of bed, still in yesterday's uniform, head pounding from lack of sleep. The clock read 7:15 a.m. She hadn't even been asleep 2 hours. "Coming," she called hoarsely, stumbling to the door. She opened it to find a woman in a dark suit, professional, mid-40s, with eyes that calculated everything in 3 seconds. "Simone Brown?" "Yes, I need you to come with me." Simone's blood went ice cold. "Who are you?" The woman pulled out a badge. Official. Government. The kind that made people disappear. "National Intelligence Service. We have questions regarding your residency status and prior activities on Korean soil." The floor tilted. Simone gripped the doorframe. "I haven't done anything wrong." "Then you have nothing to worry about." The woman's smile was professional and utterly empty. "This is just a routine inquiry. Please get dressed. The car is waiting." Simone wanted to refuse, wanted to slam the door, but she knew what happened to people who refused NIS interviews. They came back with lawyers, with warrants, with force. "Give me 5 minutes." She closed the door, heart hammering, and grabbed her phone. Her hands shook as she typed a message to the only person who might understand what was happening. 2. Unknown number. Why? "They're here. NIS, taking me for questioning." She hit send, then changed into clean clothes. Jeans, sweater, step boots. Practical. Not running clothes, though every instinct screamed at her to run. Her phone buzzed. "Don't say anything. I'm handling it." The door knocked again. "Miss Brown?" Simone took a breath, pocketed her phone, and opened the door. The interrogation room was exactly what she expected. Concrete walls, metal table, 2 chairs, a camera in the corner with a red light that meant they were recording. The woman from her apartment sat across from her, a file open between them. Behind her stood a man in a similar suit, silent, watching. "Let's start simply," the woman said. "When did you first enter the Republic of Korea?" Simone's throat was dry. 8 months ago, April 2024. "Are you certain?" "Yes." The woman slid a document across the table. "Entry records from 2015. Simone's face, younger, staring up from the page. "Then how do you explain this?" Simone stared at the paper. Her hands started trembling. "That was a long time ago. I was a child. You were 14, adopted by Dr. Peter Brown and Dr. Patricia Chen Brown. You lived in Seoul for 5 years. The woman's voice was calm, clinical. "During that time, you were flagged by multiple agencies as a person of interest. Why?" "I don't know." "Don't lie. We have records of your meetings with diplomatic personnel, your attendance at functions where sensitive information was discussed, your relationships with individuals connected to foreign intelligence services." "I didn't have relationships. I was a teenager." "You were being trained." The woman leaned forward. "Linguistic conditioning, cultural immersion, strategic positioning. You were being groomed to become an intelligence asset. And then, in 2019, you disappeared." Simone's chest felt tight. "My parents died. I left." "You fled. Without authorization. Without processing through proper channels. Your file was flagged as a potential security breach." The woman's eyes were hard. "And now, 5 years later, you've returned under a different identity, working in an establishment known for its connections to organized crime. So I'll ask you one more time. Why are you here?" "I needed work." "Who sent you?" "No one sent me." "Then why work at Paradise Lounge specifically? Why serve VIP clients connected to Yoon Jae-hyun?" The woman's voice dropped. "Why reveal your Korean language skills in front of one of Seoul's most powerful underworld figures unless you wanted him to notice you?" The accusation hit like a slap. Simone's mind raced. They thought she was a plant, a spy sent to infiltrate Jae-hyun's organization. "I didn't want anyone to notice me," she said quietly. "I just wanted to disappear." "People don't disappear in Seoul, Miss Brown. They hide. And hiding requires resources. Protection, which brings us to our primary concern. Who are you working for now?" "I'm not working for anyone." The interrogation continued for 3 more hours. Same questions, different phrasing, circles and traps and pressure. By the time they finally let her go, with warnings not to leave the country and to make herself available for follow-up questions, Simone was shaking so hard she could barely stand. She stumbled out of the building into afternoon sun that felt like mockery. Her phone buzzed. "Car on your left, get in." A black sedan idled at the curb, windows tinted. Simone should have been afraid, should have run, but she was so tired of running. She got in. Jae-hyun sat in the back seat, expression unreadable. You look like hell. Thanks. Her voice cracked. He handed her a bottle of water. She drank half of it before she could speak. How did you know? She asked. I have people watching you. When NIS showed up, I made calls. He studied her face. They think you're a spy. I know. Are you? No. She met his gaze, too exhausted to lie. But I used to be something close to it, before I knew what that meant. The admission hung in the air between them. Jae-hyun nodded slowly. Tell me everything, starting with who called you that night. So she did, because hiding had only made her a target. And maybe the truth would set her free. The attack came 3 days later. Simone was leaving Paradise Lounge through the service entrance, a habit she'd developed since that first night, avoiding the main doors where curious eyes might track her movements. The alley behind the building was narrow, lit by a single flickering bulb, trash bins lining one wall. She had her keys in hand when she heard footsteps. Not one set. 3. Her instincts kicked in before her mind could catch up. She spun, keys positioned between her fingers like claws, and found 3 men blocking the alley exit. They weren't dressed like thugs, they wore dark suits, professional, the kind of men who got paid well to make problems disappear. Simone Brown. The lead man's voice was calm, almost polite. You need to come with us. I don't think so. She backed toward the service door, but heard footsteps behind her. A 4th man, blocking that exit too. Trapped. We're not here to hurt you, the lead man continued, moving closer. We just have questions, about your time with the Chen Brown family, about what you know. I don't know anything. That's not what our intelligence suggests. He gestured to his companions. This can be easy or difficult. Your choice. Simone's heart hammered. These weren't NES. Their accents were wrong. North Gyeongsang Province, rougher. Private contractors, maybe. Or worse, rival faction operatives who'd gotten wind that someone with intelligence training was working for Yoon Jae-hyun. The lead man reached for her arm. The service door exploded open. Jae-hyun emerged like a storm, flanked by 4 of his men. He moved with economical violence. 1 strike, and the man reaching for Simone was on the ground, arm bent at an angle that made her stomach turn. The other 2 contractors reached for weapons, but Jae-hyun's guards were faster. Gunfire erupted in the narrow alley. Simone dropped, hands over her head, ears ringing. The shooting lasted maybe 10 seconds, disciplined, controlled bursts, then silence crashed down like a weight. When she looked up, 3 of the contractors were down. The 4th, the lead man, was on his knees, Jae-hyun's gun pressed to the back of his head. Who sent you? Jae-hyun's voice was cold, empty of emotion. Hanshin faction. They want the girl. They'll pay. They'll pay nothing. Jae-hyun cocked the gun. Tell your employer that Simone Brown is under my protection. Anyone who touches her answers to me. He pulled the trigger. The sound echoed off the alley walls. Simone flinched, bile rising in her throat. Jae-hyun holstered his weapon and turned to her, expression unchanged, as if he hadn't just executed a man 3 feet away. Are you hurt? She couldn't speak, could only stare at the bodies. He crouched in front of her, blocking her view. Simone, are you hurt? No, she whispered. Good, we're leaving. He stood, offered his hand. She took it because her legs wouldn't hold her otherwise. The safe house was in Gangnam, tucked behind a luxury shopping district, a penthouse apartment that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, art that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. Simone sat on a leather sofa, wrapped in a blanket someone had given her, while Jae-hyun made calls in the next room. His voice was low, clipped, issuing orders she couldn't quite hear. When he finally returned, he'd removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves. There was blood on his shirt cuff, not his. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed her one. Drink. She did. It burned going down, but the warmth helped. Why did they want me? Her voice sounded distant, hollow. Because you're valuable. Jae-hyun sat across from her, elbows on his knees. You have information about intelligence networks, diplomatic connections, strategic relationships. The Hanshin faction would pay millions for access to someone with your background, or they'd use you to extract information from me. I don't have information. I've been gone for 5 years. Doesn't matter. They think you do. He took a drink. And now multiple factions know you're alive. that you're here, that you're connected to me. I'm not connected to you." His eyes met hers. "You are now." The weight of those words settled over her like a shroud. "You should have let them take me," Simone said quietly. "Should have stayed out of it. I'm not your problem. You became my problem the moment you spoke Korean in my lounge." He leaned back. "And I don't abandon problems, I solve them. By killing people when necessary." No apology in his voice, no regret. "This is my world, Simone. Violence is currency, loyalty is survival. And right now, you're caught in the middle because someone decided you were worth more as a tool than as a person." She stared at her whiskey. "Story of my life." Silence stretched between them. Outside, Seoul glittered like a circuit board, neon and glass and power. "I could give you money," Jaehyun said finally. "New identity, travel documents, set you up somewhere they'd never find you." Simone looked up at him, searching his face. But you'd spend the rest of your life running. Looking over your shoulder, never trusting anyone." His expression was hard to read. "I know because I've seen it before. People who run don't survive long, they just die tired. And the alternative? You stay, under my protection." He set down his glass. "I can keep you safe. I have the resources, the connections, the power, but it comes with conditions. I won't be owned again." Her voice was stronger now. "I won't be used. I'm not asking you to be." Jaehyun stood, moved to the windows. "I'm offering you protection without possession. You stay in my territory, you work for me voluntarily, and in exchange, I make sure no one touches you. No agency, no rival faction, no intelligence service." "Why would you do that?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Because I see myself in you. Someone who was used. Someone who was told their value existed only in what they could give other people." He turned, and for the first time, his expression was almost vulnerable. "I know what it's like to be trapped, and I won't trap you again." Simone stood, walked to stand beside him at the window. "What do you get out of this?" "Your skills, your languages, your insights." He glanced at her. "I'm building something bigger than territory wars and port negotiations. I need people I can trust, people who understand what it means to survive. You just met me. I trust my instincts, and my instincts say you're worth protecting." The city sprawled below them, infinite and indifferent. Simone thought about running again, thought about hiding, thought about dying tired in some foreign country where no one knew her name. "I won't be a trophy," she said quietly. "I won't be yours to show off or possess. If I stay, it's on my terms. I work for you, not under you. I have autonomy, freedom, choice." Jaehyun extended his hand. "Deal." She stared at his hand for a long moment, calloused, strong, stained with violence. Then she took it. "Temporarily," she added. His mouth curved slightly. "Temporarily." But they both knew the truth. She wasn't leaving. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That night Simone stood at the window of the guest room Jaehyun had given her, watching Seoul breathe beneath a blanket of neon. Her phone buzzed. "Unknown number. You made a dangerous choice." Her blood went cold. She typed back, "Who is this?" "Unknown number. Someone who hoped you'd stay hidden. Be careful, Simone. Protection is just another word for cage." The message deleted itself before her eyes. Simone stared at the blank screen, fear and anger warring in her chest. She'd chosen protection over running. Now she just had to survive long enough to decide if that choice would save her or destroy her. If you're wondering whether Simone survives what comes next, you're going to want to stay subscribed. Trust me, the next chapter changes everything. Hit that like button if you're invested, and drop a comment. Team run or team stay? The meeting room smelled like expensive coffee and barely concealed tension. Simone sat in the corner, notepad in hand, watching 6 men in suits negotiate over territory she didn't care about. It had been 2 weeks since she'd agreed to Jaehyun's protection. 2 weeks of living in the safe house, of learning the rhythms of his operation, of becoming something she'd sworn she'd never be again. Useful. Jaehyun sat at the head of the table, listening more than speaking, a strategy she'd noticed he employed often. Let others reveal themselves, their ambitions, their weaknesses, then strike when the moment was perfect. The man across from him, Kim Dong-chul, representative of the Busan faction, was speaking in Japanese, his Korean accent thick but manageable. "The port access you're requesting would give you too much control over shipping routes. We need guarantees." Jaehyun responded in Japanese, his accent perfect. What guarantees would satisfy you? Revenue split. 70-30 in our favor. 60-40 is already generous. Then we have nothing to discuss. Kim stood, signaling his men to follow. Simone's eyes flickered to the papers on the table. She'd been listening not just to what they said, but how they said it. And something in Kim's body language, the way his eyes had shifted when mentioning port access, the slight tension in his shoulders, triggered an alarm. She stood. Everyone turned to look at her. "Forgive the interruption," she said in perfect Japanese, her voice calm and professional. "But I believe Mr. Kim may have alternate interests in this negotiation that haven't been disclosed." The room went silent. Kim's face darkened. "What are you suggesting?" "You mentioned port access would give Mr. Yoon too much control. But your concern isn't about revenue split. It's about cargo inspection. Specifically, preventing inspection of certain shipments scheduled to arrive next month." She paused. "Shipments that aren't on any official manifest." Kim's jaw tightened. "You have no evidence." "I don't need evidence. I need pattern recognition." Simone glanced at Jaehyun, who was watching her with laser focus. "The Hanshin faction has been trying to negotiate direct port access for 6 months. They've been blocked at every turn. But if they partnered with the Busan faction, used existing channels, they could move contraband without triggering customs alerts." "This is speculation." "You switched from Korean to Japanese the moment port access was mentioned?" That Simone continued, her voice still calm. "A tell. You wanted to discuss something sensitive without your own translator understanding subtext. Unfortunately for you, I speak 5 languages and I read people better than I read words." Jaehyun's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. "Is this true, Kim-si?" Kim stood frozen, caught. "We're done here," Jaehyun said quietly. "And if I find any Hanshin shipments moving through Busan channels, I'll consider it a declaration of war." Kim and his men left without another word. The moment the door closed, one of Jaehyun's men spoke. "Hingnim, she just cost us a deal. She just saved us from a trap." Jaehyun stood, eyes on Simone. Everyone out. The room cleared in seconds. When they were alone, Jaehyun walked to where Simone stood, studying her face. "How did you know?" "I didn't. Not for certain." She set down her notepad. "But I know what it looks like when people are hiding something. I spent 5 years watching diplomats and intelligence operatives negotiate in 6 different languages. You learn to see patterns, micro-expressions, strategic omissions. You saved me from walking into a partnership with people planning to betray me. Maybe. Definitely." He moved closer and she caught that dark cologne again, woody and dangerous. "You're more valuable than I thought." "Don't." Her voice was sharp. "Don't reduce me to my usefulness. That's not what I—" "Yes, it is." She met his gaze. "That's all I've ever been to anyone. Useful. Valuable. An asset to be cultivated and deployed. And I'm telling you right now, if that's all I am to you, then I'll leave. I don't care about your protection. I don't care about your resources. I won't be used again." The air between them crackled with tension. "You're right," Jaehyun said finally. "I apologize." The admission surprised her. In 2 weeks, she'd never heard him apologize for anything. "I see your skills, and I think about how to leverage them," he continued. "It's instinct, strategy, but you're not a piece on a board. You're—" He stopped, seeming to search for words. "You're someone I'm trying to understand." "Why?" "Because you survived something that should have broken you, and instead of becoming bitter or weak, you became sharp, aware, stronger." He turned away, hands in his pockets. "That's rare." Simone felt something shift in her chest. "You said you see yourself in me." "I do." "Tell me why." For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he moved to the window, staring out at Seoul's skyline. "I was 16 when my father died," he said quietly. "Murdered by a rival faction. My mother didn't survive the grief. I inherited an empire I didn't want, surrounded by people who saw me as a child playing at power. I had 2 choices: become what they expected, weak, controllable, easily eliminated, or become something they feared. So you chose fear. I chose survival. I learned their language, their rules, their violence, and I used it to build something they couldn't destroy." He glanced back at her. "But I never forgot what it felt like to be powerless, to be used as a pawn in someone else's game. Is that why you protect people?" "I protect resources." He paused. But sometimes, resources become something more. The weight of his words settled between them. Simone moved to stand beside him at the window. I don't want to be afraid anymore. Then don't be. It's not that simple. No, but it starts with a choice. He turned to face her fully. You can spend your life running from what happened to you, or you can learn to fight back. I can teach you that. I don't want to become like them. You won't, because you know what it feels like to be powerless. His voice was soft. That makes all the difference. Seoul glittered below them, a city of sharp edges and neon promises. Simone thought about the girl she'd been at 17, trapped, groomed, terrified. Then she thought about the woman she'd become, running, hiding, surviving on borrowed time. Teach me, she said. Jaehyun nodded. Starting tomorrow. The training was brutal, not physical. Jaehyun had guards for that. Mental, emotional, situational awareness drills, negotiation tactics, how to read a room, how to identify threats, how to leverage information without revealing what you knew. Intelligence is power, he told her on day 3, after she'd successfully decoded a conversation between 2 of his men. But timing is everything. Know when to reveal what you know. Too early, you lose advantage. Too late, you lose lives. By the end of week 1, Simone could identify undercover operatives in crowds. By week 2, she could negotiate in 4 languages simultaneously. By week 3, she'd stopped flinching when Jaehyun's men carried weapons openly. But it was the guilt that haunted her nights. She'd survived by disappearing. But disappearing had meant leaving others behind. Other girls in the intelligence program, other assets being groomed for extraction operations. Had they escaped? Or had they become exactly what she'd refused to be? One night, she found Jaehyun in his office, working late. I need to know something, she said. He looked up from his laptop. Ask. The people I left behind, the program I was in. Do you know what happened to them? His expression darkened. You don't want that answer. Yes, I do. He closed the laptop. 3 of them are working for intelligence services. 2 disappeared, presumed eliminated. 1 is in protective custody after testifying against the program. The rest? He paused. The rest are ghosts, like you were. Simone's chest tightened. I should have done something. You were 17. You did what you could. I ran. You survived. He stood, moved around the desk. Survival isn't cowardice, Simone. Sometimes it's the bravest choice you can make. I don't feel brave. Bravery isn't absence of fear. It's choosing to act despite it. He stopped in front of her. You're here. You're learning. You're fighting back. That's bravery. She looked up at him, at the man who'd killed without hesitation to protect her, who'd offered shelter without possession, who'd seen her as something more than a tool. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For not treating me like I'm broken. His hand lifted, hesitated, then tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Gentle, careful, intimate. You're not broken. You're sharp edges. And sharp edges cut through anything. The moment stretched between them, electric and dangerous. Then Simone's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, checked the message, and her blood went cold. What is it? Jaehyun's voice sharpened. She showed him the screen. Unknown number. Hanshin faction knows where you are. They're coming for you tonight. This is your last warning. Jaehyun's jaw tightened. We need to move. Now. But before they could reach the door, the lights went out, and Simone heard the sound of gunfire echoing through the building. The first explosion took out the ground floor entrance. Simone hit the floor as glass shattered, the penthouse windows imploding in a shower of crystalline rain. Jaehyun was on top of her instantly, shielding her body with his, one hand on her head as debris rained down around them. Stay down, he ordered, voice sharp and clear despite the chaos. The second explosion followed, 3 seconds later. Calculated, professional. The stairwell. They were cutting off escape routes. Jaehyun rolled off her, already moving. Weapon drawn from somewhere she hadn't seen him carrying it. Minwoo, he shouted into his radio. Status. Static. Then, they hit us with 12 men. Military-grade equipment. This isn't Hanshin. This is professional. How long can you hold? Maybe 5 minutes. Get her out. Jaehyun grabbed Simone's arm, pulling her toward the back of the penthouse. There's a service elevator. Maintenance access. It drops to the parking garage. They'll have that covered. I know, but it's our only shot. Gunfire erupted in the hallway. Closer now. The sound of men shouting in Korean, coordinated, disciplined, not gang members, soldiers. Jaehyun punched a code into a hidden panel. A door slid open, narrow, dark service corridor. Move. They ran. Behind them, the penthouse door exploded inward. Simone heard boots, saw flashlight beams cutting through smoke, heard commands barked in military cadence. Target is female, late 20s, Jamaican national. Priority is capture, not kill. Repeat, capture alive. They wanted her. Specifically, alive. The service elevator was 50 feet ahead. Jaehyun hit the call button, then positioned himself between Simone and the corridor, weapon raised. "Why do they want me alive?" Simone whispered. "Because you're worth more as leverage." His eyes never left the hallway. "They'll use you to extract information. From me, from whoever else they think you're connected to. They'll torture me. They won't get the chance." The elevator dinged. Doors opened. They stepped inside, and Jaehyun slammed the emergency stop after dropping 3 floors, not the garage but a mechanical level. Storage, maintenance equipment, darkness. "This way." He grabbed her hand, and they ran through a maze of pipes and concrete, his phone flashlight their only guide. They emerged in a parking structure 2 buildings over, connected through service tunnels Simone hadn't known existed. A car was waiting, engine running, one of Jaehyun's men at the wheel. They dove into the back seat. The car peeled out before the doors even closed. "Where?" the driver asked. "Safe House 3, and lose anyone following us." The driver nodded, and Seoul became a blur of lights and speed. Simone's hands were shaking. She clasped them together, trying to control the tremor, but her body wouldn't obey. Jaehyun noticed, reached over, covered her hands with his. "Breathe," he said quietly. "They knew exactly where we were. How?" "Someone told them." His expression was stone. "Someone inside my organization." "Are you sure?" "That safe house was off the grid. Only 6 people knew the address." His jaw tightened. "One of them sold us out." Simone felt sick. "This is because of me. This is because people see you as a weapon they can wield." He turned to face her. "But you're not a weapon. You're a person. And I'm going to make sure everyone understands that, even if I have to burn every faction in Seoul to do it. That's war. Yes. People will die. They already did tonight." His eyes were cold fury. "The moment they attacked my home, they declared war. I'm just deciding how to fight it." The car pulled into an underground garage. Different building, different district. More secure, Jaehyun said. Fewer people who knew about it. Inside, the safe house was smaller, sparse, functional rather than luxurious. Jaehyun made calls while Simone sat on a worn couch, trying to process what had just happened. She'd almost been taken, captured, used, again. The pattern of her life, repeating on loop. When Jaehyun finished his calls, he sat beside her. "I need to tell you something." "What?" "The reason they want you so badly. The reason you're worth the risk of attacking me." He pulled out his phone, showed her a file. "I had my intelligence people dig deeper into your past, into what happened after you disappeared." Simone's heart started hammering. "What did you find?" "You weren't just being groomed for information extraction. You were part of a larger program. Project Linguistic Asset Development, PLAD." He scrolled through documents. 23 subjects, all adopted into families with intelligence connections. All trained from childhood to be perfect information sources. "I know. I lived it." "But you don't know what happened after you left." His voice was grim. "The program was shut down in 2020 after a scandal. Allegations of human trafficking, child exploitation. The families involved were exposed, charged, scattered. Good. But the subjects, the children who'd been trained, they became targets because they knew too much, could identify too many people." He met her eyes. 12 of them have died in the last 5 years. Accidents, suicides, disappearances, all officially unrelated. The room tilted. "They're killing us. All of us. Not killing. Cleaning up. Erasing evidence." Jaehyun's expression was dark. "You're one of the last ones left, Simone. And now they know you're alive. They know you're here, and they know you're protected by someone who might actually be able to keep you alive. So they're trying to take me before you can." "Yes." Simone stood, pacing, mind racing. "How many others are still alive?" 3, maybe 4. It's hard to confirm." He stood as well. "But there's something else." "What?" "One of the survivors contacted me yesterday, through back channels. She said she has information about who's orchestrating the cleanup, who's targeting the plaid subjects. He paused. She wants to meet. When? Tomorrow. Neutral ground. Public place. Jaehyun moved closer. But it could be a trap. Or it could be answers. Simone felt something shift in her chest, not fear this time, but fury. I'm tired of running, tired of being hunted. If there's a chance to end this, I'm taking it. Even if it's dangerous, especially if it's dangerous. She met his gaze. You said you'd teach me to fight back. This is me fighting. He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. All right, but we do it my way, with security, with strategy, and if it smells wrong, we abort. Agreed. And Simone, his hand lifted, cupped her face. If anything happens to you, I will raise this entire city to find who's responsible. The intensity in his eyes should have frightened her. Instead, it felt like armor. Nothing's going to happen to me, she said. Not anymore. But as she said it, her phone buzzed. Another message from an unknown number. You can't outrun your past, and your past has a very long memory. Attached was a photograph. It was her, age 17, standing next to a man she'd spent 5 years trying to forget, Dr. Chen, her adoptive father's colleague. The man who'd designed the plaid program. The man who'd looked at her like she was raw material instead of a human being. The caption below the photo read, "He's still alive, and he's coming for what's his." Simone's hands started shaking again, because she knew what that meant. The program wasn't over. It had just been waiting. And now, it wanted its asset back. The meeting was set for noon at Dongdaemun Design Plaza. Public, crowded, impossible to stage an extraction without witnesses. Jaehyun had 12 men positioned throughout the area, plainclothes, armed, watching every entrance. Simone sat at a cafe table on the plaza's 3rd level, wearing sunglasses despite the overcast sky, a baseball cap pulled low. Across from her sat a woman in her late 20s with tired eyes and nervous hands. Her name was Yuki. Japanese-Korean. Former PLAD subject number 7. Thank you for meeting me, Yuki said quietly, her Korean accented with Japanese inflection. I know it's dangerous. You said you have information. I do. Yuki pulled out a tablet, showed Simone encrypted files. I've been tracking the cleanup for 3 years. Every death, every disappearance, I found the pattern. What pattern? They're not random. They're methodical. Yuki's finger traced connections between names, dates, locations. The subjects with the most intelligence exposure died first. Then the ones who refused to cooperate with post-program debriefing. Then the ones who went public. What about the survivors? We stayed silent, stayed hidden. Yuki looked up. But hiding only works if no one knows you exist. You broke that rule when you started working for Yoon Jae-hyun. I didn't have a choice. None of us did. That's the problem. Yuki closed the tablet. But I have proof now. Proof that the cleanup is being coordinated by someone inside the intelligence community. Someone who was part of the original program. Simone's blood went cold. Dr. Chen? How did you? I got a message last night. He's alive. Simone leaned forward. Where is he? I don't know exactly, but I know he's been moving between Seoul and Tokyo, using diplomatic cover to avoid detection. Yuki's hands trembled. He's the one ordering the eliminations. He sees us as loose ends, evidence that could destroy him. Then we expose him. With what? He's erased his connection to the program. All official records list him as a consultant who left before the scandal broke. Yuki's voice dropped. Unless we have testimony from someone who can prove he was directly involved in our conditioning. I can testify. Not enough. You were a minor. Your testimony alone won't hold up without corroboration. Yuki paused. But if multiple survivors came forward together, with coordinated accounts, backed by someone with enough power to protect us during the investigation. Simone understood immediately. Jaehyun. He's the only one with resources to shield us from retaliation. Yuki met her eyes. Can you convince him? I don't know. Because if you can't, we're dead. All of us. Before Simone could respond, her phone buzzed. Jaehyun's number. Get out. Now. Security breach. She grabbed Yuki's arm. We need to move. What? Gunfire erupted on the ground level. People screamed. The cafe windows shattered. Simone pulled Yuki down as bullets tore through the space where they'd been sitting, and chaos consumed the plaza. This way. Jaehyun appeared, flanked by 2 guards, weapon drawn. He grabbed Simone's hand, and they ran through the panicking crowd, Yuki stumbling behind them. They made it to a service corridor, down emergency stairs, into an underground parking level. A car was waiting. They dove inside, and the driver floored it before the doors closed. How did they find us? Simone gasped. They're tracking Yuki. Jaehyun turned to the woman. You were followed. I was careful. Not careful enough. His eyes were cold. Who else knows you're meeting us? No one. Bullshit. This was too coordinated. He leaned forward. Who did you tell? Yuki's face crumpled. I had to. They have my sister. They said if I didn't report my movements, they'd kill her. Silence crashed down in the car. So this was a trap, Jaehyun said quietly. You led them right to us. I'm sorry, I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. His voice was blade sharp. You chose your sister over everyone else's survival. What was I supposed to do? Let her die? Yes. No hesitation, no sympathy. Because now you've compromised us all. Simone touched his arm. Stop. She sold us out. She's desperate, just like I was, just like we all were. Simone turned to Yuki. Where's your sister? I don't know. They move her every few days. Can you contact them? They contact me. Yuki pulled out her phone, showed a message thread. They give orders. I follow. Simone read the messages, her mind working. This is how we end it. We use their system against them. How? Jaehyun asked. We let them think they won. We let them think they have me. She met his gaze. We set a trap of our own. The plan was insane, reckless, and their only option. Simone would let herself be captured by Chen's people. Yuki would report the capture as successful, and Jaehyun's men would track her location, gather evidence of Chen's operation, and extract her before real harm occurred. Absolutely not, Jaehyun said flatly when she explained it. I won't use you as bait. You're not using me, I'm volunteering. Same thing. No, it's not. Simone stood, facing him in his office where they'd returned after ditching the car 3 times to lose potential tails. Using me means I have no choice. Volunteering means I do. And I choose to end this. You could die. I've been dying slowly for 5 years. At least this way I'm fighting back. Her voice was steady. You said you'd teach me. This is what I learned. Sometimes the only way to win is to walk into the fire. Not alone. I won't be alone. I'll have you. She moved closer. I trust you to come for me. His expression was anguished. Simone, I won't survive as a secret forever. You said that. She touched his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. If I keep hiding, I'm already dead. But if I do this, if we expose Chen and end the program permanently, I might actually get to live. And if it goes wrong? Then at least I died making my own choices. She smiled, sad and determined. That's more than most people in my situation get. The silence between them was heavy with unsaid things. Finally, Jaehyun spoke. I see myself in you. I know. I know what it's like to be used, to be valued only for what you can give other people. His hand covered hers where it rested on his face. I was 17 when I took over my father's organization. Everyone saw me as a puppet, a figurehead, something to control and manipulate. How did you change that? I didn't. I just stopped letting other people define what I was worth. He turned his head, kissed her palm, gentle, intimate, devastating. You're worth more than your skills, Simone, more than your languages, more than your survival. You're worth protecting just because you exist. Tears burned her eyes. No one's ever said that to me before. Then they were fools. She laughed, wet and broken. Maybe. Not maybe, definitely. He pulled her closer, and she let herself lean into him, breathing in his scent, feeling his heartbeat steady against her cheek. If we do this, we do it carefully, with contingencies, with safety measures. Okay. And Simone? His arms tightened around her. If anything happens to you, I will burn the world. I know. Not enough. You need to understand. He pulled back, framed her face with his hands. I'm not protecting you because you're useful. I'm protecting you because He stopped, seeming to search for words. Because you matter to me. More than strategy, more than alliances, more than any of this. The admission hung in the air between them. You matter to me too, she whispered. And then, because the world was ending and starting all at once, because they might not get another chance, because fear and hope and fury were all tangled inside her chest, she kissed him. He froze for half a second. Then his arms were around her, pulling her closer, kissing her back with an intensity that stole her breath. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, claiming, two people who'd survived too much alone finding each other in the wreckage. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jaehyun rested his forehead against hers. Don't die, he said quietly. Don't let me. I won't. The capture happened 2 days later. Simone walked alone through Itaewon at dusk. No security, no weapons, just her phone with a tracker embedded in the case. She felt eyes on her. Jaehyun's men, hidden but watching. And other eyes too. Predators circling. The van pulled up alongside her at a quiet intersection. She didn't run, didn't fight. She let them grab her, let them pull a hood over her head, let them throw her into the van. Because this was the plan. Because she'd chosen this. Because freedom meant walking into the fire, knowing you had the power to burn it down. As the van pulled away, Simone heard Jaehyun's voice in her earpiece, so quiet only she could hear. I've got you. We're right behind you. She took a breath, and chose to believe him. The room smelled like bleach and old blood. Simone sat in a metal chair, wrists zip-tied behind her, hood finally removed. The space was concrete and windowless, a warehouse maybe, or a basement. Industrial, anonymous. The kind of place where people disappeared and no one asked questions. Dr. Chen stood in front of her. He looked older than she remembered, grayer, thinner, but his eyes were the same. Clinical, calculating. The eyes of someone who'd spent decades reducing human beings to variables in an equation. Subject 12, he said, and hearing that designation again made her stomach turn. You've been quite difficult to locate. Simone said nothing. 5 years in hiding. Impressive, really. Most of the others were eliminated within 2. He circled her slowly, hands clasped behind his back. What made you so special, I wonder? What gave you the survival instinct your peers lacked? Maybe I just wanted to live. Everyone wants to live. Few know how. He stopped in front of her. You were always the most promising subject, linguistically gifted, emotionally intelligent, able to adapt to any social environment. A pause. Such a waste, running away. I'm not a subject, I'm a person. You're an investment. His voice was matter-of-fact. 23 children, carefully selected, professionally trained, strategically positioned. Do you know how much the program cost? How many resources were dedicated to developing assets like you? We weren't assets, we were children. You were both. Chen leaned closer. And now you're a liability. You know too much, you've seen too much, and you've aligned yourself with someone powerful enough to expose what remains of the program. Yoon Jae-hyun? Yes? Chen's expression darkened. A criminal using you for his own purposes. Just another person who sees your value only in what you can provide. He's not. Simone stopped herself. Don't reveal emotional attachment. Don't give him leverage. But Chen's eyes sharpened. Oh, how interesting. You care about him. I don't. Don't lie. I trained you, remember? I taught you to read micro-expressions, vocal patterns, physiological tells. He smiled. And right now you're showing all the signs of emotional investment. Elevated heart rate, dilated pupils, defensive posture. Simone forced her expression neutral. Too late. This complicates things, Chen said. I was planning to eliminate you quickly, cleanly. But if Yoon Jae-hyun cares about you as well. He pulled out a phone. Then perhaps you're more valuable alive after all. Her blood went cold. What are you doing? Creating leverage. He typed a message, showed her the screen. To Yoon Jae-hyun, I have your asset. If you want her alive, you'll meet me. Alone, location to follow. He won't come. He will. Because he's predictable. Men like him, men who've built empires on power and control, they can't stand losing something they consider theirs. Chen put the phone away. And you, Subject 12, are his now, just as you were mine once. I was never yours. Weren't you? I chose you, shaped you, made you into something useful. His voice dropped. Everything you are, I created. You're wrong. Simone met his gaze, and for the first time she didn't feel afraid. You taught me languages. You taught me how to read people, but you didn't make me strong. I did that. Surviving you, running from you, refusing to become what you wanted, that's what made me who I am. Poetic, but irrelevant. Is it? Because I'm still here, still alive, still fighting. She leaned forward despite the zip ties cutting into her wrists. And I'm going to be the one who ends you. Chen's expression flickered. Doubt, maybe, or recognition. Then the lights went out. Gunfire erupted. The door exploded inward in a shower of splinters and smoke. Simone threw herself sideways, chair and all, hitting the concrete hard as bullets tore through the space above her. Flashlight beams cut through darkness, shouting in Korean. The sound of bodies hitting the floor. Then hands on her arms, someone cutting the zip ties, and Jaehyun's voice in her ear. I've got you. Chen? Already secured, my men have him. The lights came back on, powered by portable generators. The room was chaos. Chen's guards down, disarmed, zip-tied. Chen himself on his knees, Jaehyun's lieutenant holding a gun to his head. Jaehyun pulled Simone to her feet, checking her for injuries. Are you hurt? No, how did you find me so fast? We've been tracking your location since they grabbed you. I had teams positioned at every possible location within a 20-mile radius. His eyes were intense. I told you, I wasn't letting you go. Chen laughed, bitter and cold. How touching, the monster playing hero. Jaehyun turned to him, expression deadly calm. You call me a monster? You who tortured children, who turned human beings into tools. I gave them purpose. You gave them trauma. Jaehyun moved closer. And now you're going to answer for it. You can't touch me. I have diplomatic immunity, international connections. You kill me, you start a war you can't win. I'm not going to kill you. Jaehyun's smile was sharp. I'm going to expose you. He nodded to Minwoo, who pulled out a tablet. On the screen were files, documents, photographs, testimony. Everything Yuki had collected, everything Simone had witnessed, everything that proved Chen's involvement in the Plaid program, the conditioning, the cleanup operations. I've already sent copies to every major news organization in 3 countries, Jaehyun said, to intelligence oversight committees, to human rights organizations. By morning, your name and your crimes will be public knowledge. Chen's face drained of color. You can't. I can, and I did. Jaehyun's voice was ice. You wanted to use people? To treat them as assets? Now you get to see what happens when assets fight back. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Police will be here in 3 minutes, Jaehyun said, and you'll be waiting for them, along with all the evidence they'll need to prosecute you. Hyungnim, Jaehyun corrected. You'll address me with respect, or you'll address the bullet in your skull. Your choice. Chen fell silent. Jaehyun turned to Simone, offered his hand. Let's go. She took it, and they walked out of that warehouse into the Seoul night, leaving Chen to face the consequences of his choices for the first time in his career. The safe house was different this time. Smaller, quieter. Just the 2 of them. Simone stood at the window, watching the city lights blur through tears she'd been holding back for hours. It's over, she whispered. Yes. Jaehyun stood behind her, close but not touching. Chen will be arrested by morning. The program files are public. The remaining survivors will be offered protection. And me? You're free. He turned her to face him. No more running, no more hiding. You can go anywhere, do anything, build any life you want. What if the life I want is here? His eyes searched hers. Here? With you. She touched his face. If you'll have me. Not as an asset, not as protection, just as me. Simone, I know it's complicated. I know your world is dangerous. I know I might be making another mistake. She took a breath. But I'm tired of running from what I want because I'm afraid. And what I want is to stand beside you, openly, by choice. Jaehyun was quiet for a long moment. Then his hands came up, framed her face, and he kissed her, soft this time, gentle, like a promise instead of a storm. Stay, he murmured against her lips. Not because you have to, because you want to. I want to. Even though my life is violence, even though people will target you to get to me, even though. She smiled. I'm not afraid anymore. You should be. I am. Of what? Of losing you. His forehead rested against hers, of failing to protect you, of not being enough. You're enough. Her hands covered his. You've always been enough. You saw me when I was invisible. You protected me when I was powerless. You gave me the choice to stand on my own. That's all I ever wanted. I know. She kissed him again. So let me choose this. Choose you. Choose us. Outside, Seoul breathed on, infinite and indifferent, but inside that small room, 2 people who'd survived hell found something neither expected. Not salvation, not healing, just possibility. And sometimes possibility was enough. 3 months later, Paradise Lounge had reopened with new security, new protocols, and a new reputation. The VIP room where everything started now hosted legitimate business meetings, trade negotiations, partnership discussions, cultural exchanges. Simone walked through the lounge in different clothes this time. Not a uniform, a tailored suit, not a waitress, a consultant, translator, strategic advisor, most importantly, her own person. She paused by the bar, where a new server was struggling with a complicated drink order. Need help? She asked in Korean. The girl looked up, grateful. Please, I'm still learning. Simone smiled and showed her the technique the way Manager Kim had once shown her. You'll get it. Just takes practice. Thank you, Miss Brown. Simone? Just Simone. She continued through the lounge to the private office, not sneaking, not hiding, but walking openly through spaces she'd once navigated like a ghost. Jae-hyun sat at his desk reviewing contracts. He looked up when she entered and his expression softened in that way it only did for her. How was the meeting? He asked. Productive. The Japanese delegation is interested in long-term partnership. She sat across from him. But they want guarantees about supply chain security. Can you provide those guarantees? Already drafted the terms, sent them an hour ago. She leaned back. I also heard from Yuki. She and her sister are settled in Vancouver, safe, starting fresh. Good. And Chen's trial starts next month. Her voice was calm, factual. I'll be testifying. So will 6 other survivors. Jae-hyun set down his pen. How do you feel about that? Ready. She met his gaze. I spent years being afraid of him, afraid of what he made me, but I'm not afraid anymore. I'm just done letting him have power over my life. That's growth. That's survival. She stood, moved around the desk. You taught me that. How to survive without running, how to fight without becoming the monster. You were never the monster, Simone. You were always just trying to stay alive. We both were. He pulled her into his lap, and she went willingly, comfortable now in his presence, in his touch, in the quiet intimacy they'd built together. I have something for you, he said, reaching into his desk drawer. If it's another knife, I already have 3. He laughed, a sound she still cherished because it was rare and real. Not a knife. He pulled out a small box, opened it. Inside was a key. 2? She asked. The penthouse, the one we rebuilt after the attack. He watched her face carefully. I want you to move in, officially. Not as a guest, as whatever you want to call it. What do you want to call it? Home. His voice was quiet. If you'll have it, have me. Simone took the key, felt its weight in her palm. A choice, not a cage. An invitation, not a command. Yes, she said, I'll have it. Have you. Have this. He kissed her then, slow and deep, and she felt the last pieces of her old fear crumble away. When they broke apart, there was a knock on the door. Min-woo entered, apologetic. Sorry to interrupt, Hung-nim, but we have a situation. The delegate from the Busan faction is here early. He's waiting in the VIP room. Jae-hyun sighed. All right, we'll be right there. As they stood, preparing to enter the room where everything had changed 3 months ago, Jae-hyun caught her hand. Don't let her leave, he said quietly. Simone froze. The words echoed through time. From that first night, from the moment her invisibility shattered, from the beginning of everything, she turned to face him. Unless she chooses to, he smiled, understanding. Unless she chooses to. I choose to stay. Good. He squeezed her hand. Because I choose you, every day. They walked together into the VIP room. No longer captor and captive, no longer protector and protected. Just 2 people who'd found each other in darkness and chosen to build something in the light. The delegates stood when they entered, bowing respectfully. Mr. Yoon, Miss Brown, thank you for meeting with me. Simone took her seat beside Jae-hyun. Not behind him, not hidden, but beside him. Equal, visible, chosen. As the meeting began, she caught her reflection in the dark glass behind the bar. A year ago, she'd been invisible in this room, terrified of being seen, of being known, of being trapped. Now she stood openly. Not because she had to, but because she chose to. And that choice, that single, powerful choice, made all the difference. 6 months after Chen's conviction, Simone stood on the balcony of the penthouse, coffee in hand, watching Seoul wake up beneath a blanket of morning mist. Behind her, she heard Jae-hyun moving through the apartment, heard the shower turn on, heard the familiar sounds of their shared life. Her phone buzzed. A message from Yuki, started teaching Korean to immigrants here in Vancouver. It feels good. Healing, maybe. Thank you for everything. Simone smiled and typed back, that's not healing. That's living. I'm proud of you. Another message came through, from a number she didn't recognize. My name is subject number 4. I saw the trial, saw your testimony. I'm ready to come forward too. Can you help? Her chest tightened with emotion. Yes, I can help. You're not alone anymore. She sent the message, then called Jae-hyun's intelligence liaison. I need you to set up protective custody for someone, former Plaid subject, and we're going to need legal support for testimony. Consider it done, Miss Brown. Not Subject 12, not an asset, not invisible. Simone Brown. A woman who'd survived hell, refused to be defined by it, and chosen to help others do the same. Jayan emerged from the bedroom, hair damp, wearing a suit for the day's meetings. He moved behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and kissed her temple. "Working already?" he murmured. "Always. Someone else needs help. You can't save everyone." "No, but I can try." She leaned back into him. "Someone once told me that survival isn't just staying alive, it's choosing to build something better from the wreckage." "Wise person." "Occasionally." She turned in his arms. "Ready for today? With you? Always." They stood there for a moment, two people who'd found each other in darkness, who'd chosen each other against every logical reason, who'd built something real from violence and fear and hope. "Thank you," Simone said quietly. "For what?" "For seeing me, when I was invisible." "Thank you," he replied, "for staying, at when you could have run." She kissed him, soft and sure. "I'm not running anymore." "Good, because I'm not letting you go. Unless I choose to. Unless you choose to." But they both knew the truth she'd already chosen, and so had he. Not a fairy tale, not a perfect ending, just two imperfect people choosing each other, every single day. And in a world that had tried to reduce them both to tools, to weapons, to assets, that choice was the most powerful act of rebellion they could make. Freedom wasn't running. It was standing still, standing openly, and saying, "I am here. I am seen. I am mine. And I choose this." And that's how Simone Brown went from invisible to unstoppable, not by running from her past, but by facing it head-on. If this story moved you, hit that like button, drop a comment telling me your favorite moment, and please subscribe. We're building something special here. A community that believes powerful women and dangerous choices make the best stories. The next video is already waiting on your screen. Click it now, and let's keep going. Comment subscribed when you do, and I'll see you in the next one.